Honestly, I come back here mostly for inspiration more than anything. It's just the motivation, and if you can take it from anybody, you can take it from Braedon. That he has really done things through trial and error, but he learns from the trial and he learns from the error, whereas some people don't. If it's not working, change it. But a lot of people wait years before they make a change, and you've really been reminding me to make changes and to crush and try to push for new revenue levels. And so when I'm in my office in Coronado, in San Diego, I literally will repeat jargon that you've said.
There's always someone that's going to be above you, someone that's always below you, someone that knows something you don't, something that you know that they don't, so it's important to have those relationships and those friendships and stuff too, to be able to, like you and me were up last night studying Hormozy videos.
Yep, exactly.
What are you doing on a Friday night?
And
you out partying? Like, no, me and my friend are out studying Hormozy.
It was still a party,
Welcome back to Brews and Business. I'm your host, Braedon Kruse, and today I've got a guest that you haven't probably seen since we were back in the Blue Studio. And welcome back, Dr. John Meisner from California. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I was excited to be back here. It was way too long, way overdue.
Way too long.
Yeah, I think back in April. So it was like...
You know what was way too long? 10 years.
That was way too long. Yeah, I have a lot of making up to do for that still. So I'm trying. It only cost $900 to get here. Last minute flight.
Should have only cost about $300.
That's true. Procrastination and spontaneity aren't exactly the most affordable.
It's expensive.
Yeah, moves. Yeah,
it's expensive.
But next trip, I'll pre-plan, and it'll be like $300.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm still gonna tell Uncle Sam that this was very necessary.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is a bonus episode, and I don't have it on me, but there is a Costa Rica single origin blend by Gregor & Coffee Roasters, the official coffee roaster of the Brews and Business podcast. And we have some really cool merch, including just a restock of some of the can cooler glasses. I don't know what they're called, man. They look like cans, but they're glasses. They're really pretty,
tumblers.
Super cool. They're not tumblers. No.
Like open style wine glasses, stemless wine glasses.
No. They're right there.
Oh.
See them down there on the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
I'll get one and I'll show you guys sometime. They're on the Instagram and Facebook and stuff, so check those out. But anyways, so this guy's back.
Yeah, and I saw, side note, came back from Costa Rica back in just a month ago. And I'll say that the coffee you have is super, super superior to the stuff I was drinking out there. So definitely found a good source, and it's really cool to be able to taste a little bit of Costa Rica here in Tulsa, coming back from Costa Rica directly. Last month. It was a really cool environment. Pura vida, is their mantra, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, super good coffee, and you can't beat it here. So if you just want to check out Tulsa and also get great coffee, this is the studio for you. But outside of that, yeah, excited to be back in Tulsa, and it's always really refreshing to be able to see you. And honestly, I come back here mostly for inspiration more than anything. It's just the motivation, and if you can take it from anybody, you can take it from Braedon. That he has really done things through trial and error, but he learns from the trial and he learns from the error, whereas some people don't. They're rinsing and repeating in business. And I think one of the most powerful things for me has been, like, if it's not working, change it. But a lot of people wait years before they make a change. And you've really been reminding me to make changes and, to crush and try to push for new revenue levels. And so when I'm in my office in Coronado, in San Diego, I literally will repeat jargon that you've said, where it's just like little chimes of knowledge, little tidbits, right? But I'm like if you're not doing 10K a month, you're just really not doing it right. Like you got to break the 10K. So and with your help, and I've been able to finally break through 10K as I showed you, like this month. So, it's been good.
Cheers to 10K.
10K, it's not huge, but I think it's a milestone for a lot of small business that, really says, like, okay, like you've stuck it through, and you're on your way to kind of compounding and 2xing, 3xing, 10xing that. But obviously the numbers are going to grow, and a lot of your expertise has been a result of that too. So.
There's levels to all of it. There's always someone that's going to be above you, someone that's always below you, someone that knows something you don't, something that you know that they don't.
Yeah.
So it's important to have those relationships and those friendships and stuff too, to be able to, like you and me were up last night studying Hormozy videos.
Yep, exactly.
What are you doing on a Friday night?
And
you out partying? Like, no, me and my friend are out studying Hormozy.
It was still a party, it's just different kind of party, different kind of fungication. But yeah, that's the reminders are huge though. I think it's mindset. Like really, it comes when it comes to goals, it's and then you get to that marker and you're like, what could I do to double that, and why can't I double that? Is it mindset? Is it opportunity, lack of opportunity, or is it lack of execution? For me, execution is huge. I don't do enough of it, and it's always nice when you give me a friendly text like, "Hey, man, really like this, but you could go a little further as to get a little weird with this content or a little different with this content," because there's so much content out there now. I think saturation, and I'm not the expert, but I feel like we as humans just tend to like drown it out because we're so overly stimulated that you have to find that one thing that really speaks to you, and usually it's something comical, or it's something that like really just pushes the social envelope of like,
Yeah.
like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then all of a sudden you're engaged past that.
Good marketing is supposed to invoke an emotion.
Yeah.
Right. So like when you're scrolling on TikTok, the first few seconds of something you see, you're like, what is that? You like, you immediately, or you get angry at it, or you get curious,
Well, I get frustrated because like as a doctor, we're supposed to be educators. That doctor literally means educator, and I think in Latin or Greek, but it, teacher, right? And so for me, I want to teach people online, but teaching can be boring, and that's the frustration for me. It's just like, I want to get on camera and be like, oh, and this is what we learned in school, and this is really exciting because this is how it works. But like you were talking to me about last night, it's just like you have a rotator cuff injury, but they don't want to know how it's going to get better. They want to know that they will get better, and they want you're selling them on the end result. I'm going to be pain-free. Cool. That's all I need to know. Like, don't tell me anymore. And I find myself over-explaining things. And people say they like the explanation, but
very few people do.
And a lot of doctors don't. So I think I try to differentiate myself through education, but there's a limit in line. Because there's still the entertainment value. There's still the hero syndrome of like the person wants to be the own hero of their own story when it comes to a product or a service. So you can pitch them all day long, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, how's this going to make me Superman? How's this going to make me richer? How's this going to make me more important? And going back to that guy that you were watching last night, he was saying something along the lines of
Hormozy.
Yeah, he's just like, people don't really, like they want, at the end of the day, they want it, like they care, but they only care to an extent about how it's going to mostly affect them. So it's kind of an internal selfish thing when it comes to business, unfortunately, it goes back to why the frustrations with just working with people, like businesses working with people, corporations, large bodies, small bodies. But, you have to kind of almost create like an emotional like barrier, to not let it get to you. And same with being a doctor outside of marketing, you have to still create a barrier. It's like people are unloading their pain on me all day. Like, I am hurting. This has ruined my life. People cry on the table. People laugh on the table. Yeah, they get frustrated. Like, oh, this one girl, like, oh, I can't rollerblade the way I used to, and I can't do this the way I used to. So she was super frustrated. So like that right there is a pain point. You could definitely sell that and be like, well, you're in this predicament, and this is how we get you out of it. So taking a history is really like taking a synopsis of like, how am I going to, like, as a pitch, like your review of findings, like this is your diagnosis, is essentially the product. Like, this is how we're going to fix like the solution to what you want in a sale. Like, so it's medical, it's health-based, but it's still a pitch at the end of the day, which is kind of crazy.
I've kind of structured a little bit of like the things that I do here. Like if I was a doctor, right? And then I have a PA, right? Which is like maybe below the doctor. And then I've got like a nurse, and then you have like some admin staff. However that's layered, you guys may know or whatever. I don't know. But like Maddie's my
like
PA.
A hierarchy. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like Leslie's another PA, right? And then so on and so forth. But there's hierarchy, but I'm trying to like paint the picture as like, well, I'm the doctor, make me more exclusive, make me harder to get a hold of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not like and I go back and forth. I'm like, is that a conceited thing? I'm like, no. It's like, cause I'm just finding where I'm finding my specialties and like where I'm meant to be and like what I'm good at and like what they're good at, and let them handle certain things that I'm not. Like some of this stuff is just like, some of it can be a little mundane and just like not that important, but still needs to get done. So like that's where Maddie and I work together. It's not really that impactful. It's not a big project or anything like that. And then there's some things where it's like it really is a big project. Like if this doesn't get done, I'm going to freak out. And I don't know how to get it from here to there, but I know it needs to get there.
Yeah.
And can you help me piece the puzzle together to help get it over the hump, So like on some of the presentations and stuff, like it took us some good back and forth over a couple of weeks. And it was like, here's some information. It needs to be put into a prezo. And I only want this to be like 15 slides. Give or take. and just create the format. Well, I looked at it. I'm like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I went in, I made some changes, and she learned from me. She was like, oh, that's how you do that. And that's how you made it animate and do all this stuff. I was like, yeah. So she learned some things from me. I was like, we can make slides shorter. You could save some time, but I don't have to put in stuff. So I learned something. I learned something from her on how she put it together. She learned something from me on that. So there's a good like back and forth on that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because like when you refer to a doctor as like they're also unanimously referred to as like the provider, which is kind of interesting because like I think if you look at a doctor and you go and you relate it like you're saying to kind of like the boss, they're kind of traffic directors. So like they know that they want to get their client or aka their patient the best results to get them healthy. There's an ethical conduct there too, and like an obligation to perform
Yeah.
to get them this result because it literally could maybe on the extreme ER save their life or on a chronic pain level get them to a better quality of life. But for you, it's exactly the same thing. It's like, look, I could spend my time on these low like task type situations, but you'd be doing your client, aka patient, a disservice if you weren't funneling it to the right person. So like in a doctor's office, you have billers, you have the back office, you have people answering emails, you have people, creating, those volume tasks that, but then again, the doctor needs to come in and use his brain. He needs to come in and delegate. So really, I mean, doctor is a delegator. Like he's like, okay, I saw him. This is my professional consult, which is worth a lot, and you're better off spent doing that than those smaller things like going to the front desk and scheduling the patient right afterwards. So it's scaling even in a doctor's office. It's scaling and realizing your role and where your time and money is best
So
spent.
you're gonna go through that this year.
Yeah, this year is definitely going to be about growth for
Yeah.
sure. The year of the snake. So I'm shedding old habits, trying to make new habits because sometimes habits can like tank you. It's just like whether it's
God.
procrastination, attention deficit disorders or something like just not focusing or just like I'll wait to send that email. It's like no, you send it now because you won't remember later, or you send it now because then you.
So if you
know,
wait, then you're just like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll just do it tomorrow.
and then you get that phone call from another business that has their shit together. And then they're like, dude, what the hell? Like, why haven't you gotten this? Like, especially when you're working with like an attorney, like they've got huge scaled offices, where it's just, you've got paralegals, they've got all kinds of stuff, where they're sending in constant data, information, notes, documents, and they want it fairly quickly too, because they have these deadlines, they have these court hearings, they have all this blah, blah, blah. So, and they're talking about busy guys. They're hard to get a hold of. Like attorneys, like some of those big guys in LA, you don't even know who you're working with sometimes. It's just case managers that are basically coercing with me because I'm not scaled largely, but eventually, hopefully, there will be that crossover with them. But yeah, I
So
think,
the attorneys just have case managers, and then they just progress the case, and then help summarize it, and let him make a decision, sign off on it, move it forward. Or
yeah, I mean, from my experience, like, a lot of the case managers are delegating a large chunk of it. And then those are the guys that hold the license, they hold the expertise. And those are the guys that show up in a suit and show up to the court date, but they're the ones that really can punch, pack the punch, seal the deal. But then the case managers are doing all the fluff. They're corresponding with other providers, doctors, because in a case you have
yeah,
to,
that's what I'm trying to work towards. It's something like that.
yeah.
That kind of model, that kind of setup.
But like you were saying, you have to be able to scale in a way that's productive and not counterproductive. Because if you're going back and crossing T's, dotting I's, you're almost disconnecting just enough to get confused and have to go back and refresh and revisit. And that takes time and energy. So it's like you need those people to really be on their stuff, and I don't know how that works, but I mean, I know attorneys must do it. I know doctors do it, but I think attorneys are even more chaotic because they have so much volume and the layering of their cases can be a little involved too. But whereas, providers, doctors, they kind of stick to what they know. They stick to what, get a patient in and treat them for their cause, and then they have a specialty. But with personal injury attorneys, I feel like, they have different types of accidents and, they've got different natures on which way this could go and, how long this could take and whether it's like pre-litigation or litigation. So, there's, I've found a lot of respect for attorneys recently just by working with them. But, it's a fun system to work with because, you have interpersonal relationships with different types of people all working for the betterment of the patient or the client in their case. But we're getting them the healthcare they need and they're getting a voice. And that's really what attorneys are, is a voice to the patient, because a lot of times these bigger insurance companies, they just manhandle you quite literally. And like on a small scale with personal insurance where I see it, where I get denied claims, and I'm like, this patient needs it. Like for one, I'm the expert, which is really frustrating, but then they go, oh, we don't see value in treating this patient. Like, you're not in the room taking the history,
Yeah, yeah. Who are you
but
to determine that? Like,
but they middleman the shit out of it, and you find yourself fighting for reimbursement, on top of trying to fight for their healthcare, and then doing your job as a doctor and just being there ethically for the patient too. So, and that takes a whole team, and I'm finding that out where I'm like, man, like if I'm gonna do heavier insurance, you have to have a system. You can't be in chaos. You can't be procrastinating.
yeah, that's
But,
interesting. Hmm. Yeah, man. Shoot, in just a few minutes, we covered a lot.
right?
Covered a lot of interesting topics and stuff. So yeah.
But I'm excited to see your business. I mean, what's your next, move in 2025? Like you were telling me yesterday, we're already, you lowered your year. You said I have 7 months in the year, which is kind of cool. You're like, because we can just basically throw away the last year, month and a
The
half.
last quarter.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah, the
it's
last
people-
quarter is totally trash for me every time.
holidays,
Yeah.
Festivities, obligations.
Unless you're in retail or restaurants, like
Yeah, this Christmas was hard for me. I noticed a definite decline in patient involvement. Just people were just busy. They were traveling. Yeah, it was just hard.
family activities, corporate parties, hungover the next day.
Yeah.
I can't come into the chiropractic office because I'm a little too tipsy.
Yeah. It was, and
No,
I don't know. I was like,
don't
is
quote
this a
that.
test of the economy, or is this, is this just, but they started hitting me up in 2025 in January. But there's that whole onboarding of like even gyms, for example, anything in wellness or alternative medicine. It's like, oh man, new year, I'm going to change my health. I'm going to change my life. And I think us as entrepreneurs and business owners, we do the same thing. It's like, and that's where when I wrote that book, it's called the 12-week year. It was basically saying like, why do we make these mental blocks of like, oh, I'm going to restart and refresh on the year? It's like, well, why don't you do that every 3 months? Why don't you have a year every quarter, And so like reframing like your goals and your push and your drive. But I think we as humans, just myself included, I default to like 2025, new year, new me, new business, new goals.
I've starting earlier last year, even a little bit before that, I started thinking on the 90-day mindset.
Yeah.
And it really kicked in. It really started to hit harder in the summer of last year, to where I'm like, oh, 90 days, one, it goes by so fast. And two, if you make any changes faster than 90 days, sometimes it's like you don't know if it could have worked.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really give it the time it needed. And also sometimes you don't need to give it a whole year to see if it worked. It's like a relationship.
Yeah.
Like you're going to know in 90 days after having a tough conversation if the relationship's going to change, So like things like that. So yeah, 90-day changes are really important. And so like we've started to go into quarterly audits and quarterly marketing meetings with clients and quarterly calls, sort of thing. So instead of doing monthly calls, instead of talking about reports and things like that, in between, more frequently. Another thing I heard, it's like the more frequently that you talk, the faster you can make changes. That may be
cut your
true.
losses, essentially.
It may be
quicker,
true, but you got to be careful about making changes that make too big of an impact too quickly.
True.
So, imagine if you hired and fired and rehired everybody every month. Whoa. Yeah. Okay. Extremes.
Well,
right?
and there's the whole investment of having to like hire, like train them too. I get, when you're bringing in bodies, they're coming from different backgrounds, different walks, and they're moldable. But then there's also like, once you have them, if they're an asset, keep them, if they are willing to stay. But then you also have to value and kind of assess their performance and be like, is actually helping me build and scale, or is this like working against me? Because then at that point you're like babysitting, or at that point you're almost costing yourself money in a lot of ways, because you're not only losing revenue as you pay this person, but you're losing time because you're just delaying the inevitable of basically cutting, like you said, cutting a bad relationship, or cutting a bad investment, so to speak. So, but you as a provider have the obligation to your client to perform. So if somebody internally is like not getting them those best results, then you're doing kind of your client a disservice as well by having an internal back office of like not getting them the productivity and and the speed, the promptness, the quality, the refinement, of the system. But it's hard though, because it's like they are humans. They're not AI. They're not just something you can create on like some automation platform and then just be like, okay, it's going to perform like this every single time there's a trigger. that person can respond the exact same way. It's like they could come in that day and have a bad day. They could have a family emergency, so it's just like you have to be compassionate to an extent too, but you also can't just take a hit, for the sheer sense of compassion and,
It's true.
empathy and sympathy and all that. But yeah, and that's why I've avoided, scaling, because I don't want that responsibility, and nor do I have the expertise. I think you've learned, definitely, it's incredible to see like how you have skill in the sense of like going from, like your room essentially as one man show, kind of where I'm at, and then learning how to train one, not two, not three, but now having like multiple families, like you said, that you have to think about. Like, and it's a selfless thing too. Is it's like I want to succeed personally, I want money personally, but it's not really about you. It's a bigger global picture of like you're a provider, like a doctor. You have an ethical obligation to maintain a level of revenue so that you can make sure those people are paid out, so that those families eat. And so it's kind of like Dr. Braedon internally with your business, because you have to make sure that their health is met, their financial health is
Yep.
met.
Yep.
So, which is stressful, but like hopefully the groove, and like you said, you rinse and repeat until you feel like it's operating and it's working correctly.
Yeah, I'll touch base on one thing. There's the conversation that I was telling you about the 5 priorities in business. So about having a quality product or service, like quality is subjective,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, what's quality? And I remember talking about this with Mario Breezino. I was trying to say his name right, but Mario. I recorded with him a few episodes ago, and he was like, it's very subjective. So, but like, if you go to Starbucks here in Tulsa, and then you go to Starbucks in China, and you go to Starbucks in Europe and Africa or wherever, and you order an iced caramel macchiato, it's the same thing. That's a
Yeah.
quality drink,
Mm-hmm.
and you're greeted every time you walk in the door, and you're greeted again, thank you when you grab your drink. Like, that's quality service. It's quality product, and it's a consistent expectation that you can have with Starbucks. And so start with that first. And then I would say you got to move on to marketing, because you got to get attention on that product and service that you have. Then you got to move on to sales. So you can't sell anything if no one knows about it. You can't sell anything if you also don't have a good product or service that you're confident about. You can't train anybody or tell anybody to start selling that stuff if, again, they're not confident on it, if it's not quality. So quality product, service, marketing, sales, and then good accounting, and then good people and process.
Yeah.
That's what I figured out. That's my methodology right now.
Yeah. And almost every, sentence you use the word quality. So it's like it comes down to the product, yes, and then the delivery. So, but whatever that takes to deliver is all the back office stuff. It's like,
Part of the process.
And then that comes down to the people, the other P words, right? People.
The process is very easy when it's all in your head.
Yeah.
But take yourself out of it and get somebody else to do it. It's a lot harder.
Yeah. You should try to just, for fun. I mean, it would be terrifying, but have Braedon I'll fly you to, the Bahamas for a week and just take away all your technology and then come back and see what happens.
Yeah.
That'd be terrifying. But then I guess that'd be a good standardization of process.
I did that.
I'm back.
I've done it
What
twice.
happened? What
So
fell apart?
I've done it
What
2 or
fell
3
apart?
times, actually. One time I took a month off every 90 days, and that was great. I'm doing it again this year.
You need that creative space. Like, that's why I come here sometimes.
Last year I didn't take any time off.
Yeah.
I didn't take that. There's no real vacations. None of that last year. The year before, Leia was born, and I
that's
took
full-time
a
job.
month off. 3 weeks consecutively, and the 4th week was not really working, but just, hey, how's it going? But 3 weeks straight, I didn't check in with nobody. No one bugged me. No one emailed me. Nothing. So it can be done. So I proved to myself I can disappear for a month, and it's fine.
Okay.
I can disappear consecutively for a month, and it's fine. And I can also disappear for a month not consecutively, and it's fine. So I've noticed that when I took a month off both those years, that there were certain things that was like, well, you didn't have access, so you couldn't do this part. Or, for example, I told you I was like, I'm the only one that really does sales. So then the business doesn't grow, right?
Yeah.
So like, even if leads come in, nobody else
how
is
to
really
like nurture and
dedicated to sell it.
handle them.
Somebody could figure it out. Of course, they could figure it out, but no one else
The
is
performance
else
isn't going to be there.
dedicated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not
That's my
like
biggest thing right now with me. It's like, even just having like a small front desk operation where it's like, that booking is literally the determination of your next week. So it's like, if that fails to get done and you let go of that, you can look at your next week and be like, oh my God, it crumbled, And so like you're saying, like you can get the leads coming in, but you need that performance and that evaluation to really like execute. And there's no one better than the person that built it to begin with that can do that.
because
So,
you know it.
you know,
You built it.
yeah,
Yeah. It's all in your head, which is also dangerous.
yeah. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, I'm excited to see what this year brings. And I think, there's like a trust factor, but there's also an experience factor where you've experienced things in the past with these things and trying to let go. But then also it's, how do you keep a handle on it? But how do you also realize that, you can't solely be the product all the time, And so I think that's the biggest thing with chiropractors and doctors in general. It's like they want to see the name, the guy, like, oh, I want to see Dr. Meisner, and it's just like, well, Dr. Meisner, like you said, Starbucks, like if I go to Italy, and I opened up a chiropractic office there, the treatments will be a little different because they're not my hands. Like they're not the exact same technique. So I can't really replicate an adjustment but I can replicate the idea of what you're trying to do in the office when you come in for an adjustment.
Yeah.
So like scaling and like creating a brand versus creating a personal brand, like more of like, and then that's what I want to do next is like, I want to figure out whether it's a rebrand or, but taking the emphasis off of me, off of my Google reviews of like Dr. Meisner is really great. It's like Back to Play is really great. Or, or some
well, that's
other
something I've been working on
brand
for a
is
long
really
time.
great.
But people make a relationship with somebody in the organization, then they call them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, like with your name, like I thought that was a good idea because everyone else does like, Meisner Chiropractic.
Their name.
Now you're tied to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, Back to Play. Well, Back to Play, I think is a great name because it's like, I'm injured and I want to get back to playing on the field, and I'm an athlete, or I want to get back to playing with my kids.
I think it's like work hard, play hard. Like I always kind of went off like the work and the play. Like life should be play. Life should be playing in your environment. Like when you look at kids and you look at like 2-year-olds, like your daughter that's just crawling around and can entertain herself and can do these things. It's honestly, if you look at kids that are that age, they have the best body movement mechanics too. Like they move and hold their body. Their center of gravity is incredible. And then we as modernized adults, we tend to create these weird postures from corporate environments or sitting at a desk, and
all strict.
So we get away from really the natural aspects of play.
Yeah.
So and for me as an entrepreneur, I think of play like going out into downtown and and the work reward situation where you're like play for an adult is different than play as a kid, but back to play is like getting you back to being able to have the best quality of life. That's kind of where I was going, but also at the same token, people tend to think play as in sports. So there's like that psychological connection of like, so back to play seems more sports oriented. So I've had other people ask me like, well, are you a sports guy? Are you this? I'm like, well, I want to be broad enough. So, I'm considering a rebrand, but I also know like whenever you change anything, consistency goes away. So when somebody's Googling me and going Back to Play Chiropractic and that's no longer a thing, you're kind of like,
like the whole Sooner marketing thing.
So
that's 10 years old. Like if I rebrand, like I'm starting all over.
Yeah.
At that point, like I might as well sell the sucker.
Yeah. And there's chiropractic too. If you say it could be Back to Play Wellness that incorporates chiropractic, but as soon as you put chiropractic on it, now they think of you as a chiropractor versus red light therapy. And there's like biohacking, there's functional medicine. So like, I could take that and also respin it because then chiropractic is very hands-on. Chiro means hand in Greek or Latin, and like literally chiro, like hand medicine, manual medicine. Yeah. So, and that's a hands-on profession. So like when I'm here, I can't be treating people unless I have an office here, which is possibly in the loop. But, but it's very hands-on personable. So it's like, what can I do to outsource? Could we do IV bags? Could we do red light therapy? Could we make it more of a wellness spa? Could we, diversify the product so I'm not the product?
Speaking of which, we need to fill that cold plunge up.
Yeah, that's going to be painful. But we have it. We might as well do it. A little birthday plunge.
Yeah, then we need a sauna. You need a sauna.
Yeah, sauna, hot, cold therapy would be great. That was kind of the idea. Something that could be passive, and even shockwave therapy, because, you don't need a true license to run Shockwave, and like people are selling that for $200 a pop in San Diego.
Shockwave?
Shockwave. Yeah, so if you could market the shit out of Shockwave, it's just very passive, where's the area, where's it hurt, point to it, run the machine, and there's no real licensing on that demographic. You don't need anything for it, and they're getting 200 a visit. It's because it's a precursor to stem cell therapy. So the idea is, okay, your body and your cells are operating in their own metabolism in that local area. Shockwave is an ultrasonic wave or sound wave that goes into the tissue and opens that area up. But basically, it'd be a precursor to PRP, like platelet-rich plasma injections, which are really great for the shoulder. Stem cells would be the next level up. Those are all more invasive. You got to use needles. You got to get through the skin. Shockwave, there's very low risk. It's like lesser of a risk than like a tattoo artist if you're not even penetrating the skin. And it's effective. It shows that you can rebuild collagen fibers, synthesis. It lowers inflammation, and it allows the patient to really reduce pain, which is really what people come in for, is that pain point, going back to like, what do I get out of this after I spend $200 a pop? Well, you're going to feel better and your body's going to operate better and you're actually going to rebuild tissue. So if you have a lot of old scar tissue, it breaks it down, where you can't do that with traditional massage. You can't do that with traditional therapies. So Shockwave is really coming to the main front of like, it's going to trump, in my opinion, like traditional ultrasound therapy, all like e-stem, electrical stem. There's not a lot of efficacy or studies behind those modalities other than they feel good. But with Shockwave, it actually changes your cellular activity, and it allows you to actually recover physiologically from a cellular level. So it actually excites your own stem cells. And we have stem cells.
Shockwave therapy?
Shockwave does, yeah. So you have shockwave therapy that can basically after 50, you start reducing your stem cell count highly. But we all have stem cells in our body. So people are super excited about stem cells. We have to realize we all have stem cells still. We still produce it. So a lot of these like naturopathic doctors, I think you actually interviewed one earlier this week. There's a lot of these other modalities that are like, you can control this through supplementation and diet and actually boost your own ability to maximize stem cells. So don't go for an injection. These are costly. These are huge, and it's invasive, and there's not a lot of studies that,
go lay out in the sun.
Yeah.
Get some vitamin D.
Do all those things, and so there's like these precursors that they're selling to help boost your own stem cells. And then if that still isn't working, then inject other people's stem cells or other sources of stem cells. But so Shockwave goes based off that. Basically, you get stem cell activity and stimulus without having to do much other than just run this machine over the area. So, and it pays well, which is great. So I think, going back to that, like sauna, cold plunge, Shockwave, creating that wellness modality, and then having a chiropractor come in like once a month or once a week, and then administer the manual therapy and the adjustments. But I think chiropractors get lost in the fact that they stick to the purity of chiropractic, and they're like, chiropractic is a cure-all. It's like, it's everything. It's like,
the end all be all, it'll fix everything.
Like no, if you get adjusted, like you're done. Like, come on, man. Like there's so many other alternatives, and you gotta be adjusted. You should be adjusted weekly, or at least bi-monthly, a couple times a month. And it's maintenance. Like, it's like getting your hair cut. Like, do you need to cut your hair? No, but it sure as hell looks a lot better when you look maintained,
Cut my hair once a month, get my back cracked once a month.
Yeah, lifestyle medicine, not crisis care. Then that's what I call, going in when you're like, oh, I did this to my body for 20 years. And
I'm bleeding out now. Well, now it's a lot harder to catch up and fix it.
Yeah, that's sick care, or crisis care. And that's where the ER, and that plays a role. Like, you get stabbed, don't go see a chiropractor. Go to the ER and stop the bleed, and that's stuff that's huge too. But I mean, as far as like chronic and quality of life care, that's where chiropractic comes in. But then you can tandem it with all those other wellness modalities, and science is blowing up. And I think we need to really utilize technology, and that's where biohacking is really popular right now in California. Biohacking, Dave Asprey, he's got like the seminar coming up, I think in Austin, and like I think it's March or April, but. It's red light therapy. It's basically trying to live to 180. It's basically what he's pitching. He's like, come on, man, like use technology, use these lifestyle medicines to feel and look your best. There's even like a rave or like some sort of like music festival. I think it's called like Live Beyond is what it's called. But basically the idea is like it's a healthful approach to partying. So
can you imagine living 200 years?
180? I mean, I won't get there, but the idea is like, try. Like, what if you get to 120? Like, people are doing it in those, what they call them, blue zones or whatever. Those areas of like Japan where, people are like consistently living beyond 100, but we cap ourselves at like, oh, 80 is a good run. It's like, well, why not push for another 40, But what are you going to feel at that next 40? Is your libido going to be good? Like, are you functional?
Can you lift? Can you walk?
Yeah.
Can you wipe your own butt?
Yeah. And
Can you eat?
but that starts with today.
Can you swim? Yeah. Can you play? Imagine if you were 80 years old, but instead your body was 40.
The biological age versus the annual
Calendar.
temporal age, like calendar age. And that's what biohacking is about. It's like, okay, your kidney says you're 20, you might be on a calendar 40, but you're operating biologically at a younger age. And so that's kind of the game that they play and the marketing tactics that they use.
That's wild.
Because who doesn't want to live longer? Who doesn't want to say like, this all has to end at 80? It could end at 110, So that's kind of.
And you can still have a good quality of life through 110.
Yeah, well, quality of life is huge. I would even take quality at like 80 if I could, rip around in a cool car and still get out of my car at like 80 and not feel like I'm, walking around on a, some sort of handicap situation. But and I think that's where we're at. I think modern medicine and technology, and I think we all as professionals and doctors need to adapt into using all of our resources, which I think chiropractic, we tend to get stuck in that like little lane, but creating multiple revenue lanes, creating multiple, medicinal alternative lanes would be helpful in any scaling of business. That's kind of my next goal is like, how can I free myself from the demand of being on site constantly and still have a functional operational practice?
Yeah. That's like the ultimate question for you right now.
Yeah. Hire, like you said, remember, again, your words going through my head, learn how to fire yourself,
Yeah.
How do you and like the job that you hate the most, or you desire to not do the most, that's your next hire, like, okay, well, I hate,
what do you hate doing?
yeah, like building, scheduling,
Yep.
like all the admin stuff, like doctors get
And not
into
only
it.
can you find somebody to do the job, but can you find somebody to do the job and you trust them and they're a good, they're a good person, and do they have good character, good work ethic?
Yeah.
Are they more than just capable of doing the job? Do they want to do the job? Do they have is there any other passion? Yeah. Is there any passion behind doing it? Yeah, I love health and wellness. I love it. I really like taking care of people. Well, good. That's great. You want that. Now, okay. Are you able to hit the buttons and do this? Okay, great. You're capable. Check. And do you want to show up here? Yeah, I want to show up here because I love it. I'm like, okay, cool. Great. You fit.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like as a business owner, no one's going to care about the business and the survival of your business more than you. Like that's what it comes down to. So that goes back to that 100%.
Unless it's their
all or
job.
nothing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if they get paid, there's that scale of like, proficiency. Like, am I 100% in today? You always bring your A game. You get up and you go, I have to get this done. This has to succeed. Where somebody gets it tomorrow, like, oh, I'm kind of tired today. I'm going to do like 50%. I'm just not going to quite pull my A effort on this phone conversation, or the way I answer my tone.
I try. I've tried a few times. I've tried to be like, all right.
I don't care.
Nope, don't care. And
it's terrifying.
I have no choice but to.
You have to. Yeah. Because you have to. And same with me. It's like there's days where I'm like, fuck them. I'm going to get
fuck
you
it
in.
All,
I'm going to
light it on fire.
Yeah, I can adjust you in 3 minutes, or I could take 20 minutes. I'm somewhere in between, but on days that I don't care, I'm like, let's just fly through them and see what happens. Some of them look like they've been traumatized, like, and I'm like, hey, have a good day, But then you're like, oh my God, is he coming back? Like, so they have these expectations, and so you're always on. You have to constantly be on your A performance with these patients, unless you're running a system and you're just like
all the time,
and you train them, which I hate the word, but it's true. Like they say, train your front desk. You have to train your patient. You have to train your client on the reception that they get. So like their expectation of how you're going to provide a service for them, you can't really deviate from the get-go. So you need to kind of establish that, and you have to kind of nurture that and be like, okay, this is the quality I've been experiencing since day one. But if you drop that, you feel like you're underperforming, they might leave. Or if you overcompensate and you do a little extra, now they want more, So it's just like So I've done less, and it freaks me out because then like, and then there's times where they don't really care, and I'm like, wow, could I get away with this? Because then I'm like, I could cut my day by a fourth. I could be, spending 80 hours now. I could in that amount of time I could be out in 20 hours. And now I have 60 hours back. And like, even if the client didn't like it or the patient, I could still find a new patient with the 60 hours. That might be more appropriate or might be more accepting of a 30-minute adjustment. But then there's the ethical part where you're like, oh, do I really want to just adjust this person quickly, treat them like meat basically, and you're just running a meat shop, getting him in, getting him out? It's probably more profitable, but then there's the whole like ethical standard of like, well, how was your experience? So I think, for me, it's more boutique, and I want to incorporate quality, which I think is where the wellness side of things comes with. Like,
people will pay for more
the
experience.
bells and the whistles.
Yeah.
They want to feel like $1 million, quite literally. They want to be the hero. So if they don't feel that way and they feel like
that's what I've been preaching. I'm like, we need to paint our clients as the hero.
Yeah.
I don't care about us. It's not about us.
Yeah.
It's not about us. It's about the patient.
They don't care about you necessarily either.
They don't care about us either.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
No.
They don't.
What do they want? My clients, they want more money. They want more attention. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's more money.
They don't care about your expertise or how much 10
they don't
years
care how we do
that
it.
you've built up this expertise and you spent
No,
endless
it's all
nights.
fluff. It's all extras.
Yeah.
Like, that's all great. Like, yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't care what you do. So long as if I'm making more money, don't care.
Yeah. You're selling an end result.
So long
You're
as
like,
my
you're
shoulder
gonna be
quits
here.
hurting,
Yeah.
don't care what you want to do. You want to shock it, you want to poke it, you want to slap it, you want to hit it. Don't care.
Yeah.
You want to get some sushi?
I would love to.
Cheers.
Cheers. Brews in business.
Brews in business.
Hopefully we'll be able to get Braedon out here and in San Diego and get some road mics out there, and then start interviewing some people and having some fun with that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun.
You haven't been in California since with me, or have you been there once before or once after that?
Once
you went on a
after
cruise,
Alex.
right? Yeah. Okay. No, that outside of that one.
No.
Okay.
Well, outside of Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah, once.
Right, for something else, I think.
For you.
Before that. Okay. But yeah.
I haven't been out there in a long time.
Yeah, you're overdue. We'll figure it out.
I've got pictures.
We're not doing the baby thing. Yeah, that whole adulting on the other side of business.
Well, we're going to grab sushi, so thank you for joining in on today's episode of the Brews and Business Podcast. And John, welcome back to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yay.
My quarterly visit. It should be quarterly. It's got to pre-book those flights.
Yeah, we need to figure out how to get that office set up out here. So, if there's anybody else that you guys would like to see on the Brews and Business Podcast, you can submit it on the website.
Cheers to Costa Rica.
Cheers to Costa Rica. This is not from Costa Rica. This is some other whiskey that I can't name off because the bottle's over there and I can't read it, but it's good stuff. And Costa Rica for coffee. So if you actually want coffee, brewsandbusiness.com. Support, like, comment, share, do all the good stuff. So appreciate you guys.
Sustainability, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Save this loss.
Yeah.
Even though they only
Be
have
intentional
3
for 2025, and that's all I have to say. Cheers.
I like it.